As we all know by now, not much was expected of Seattle coming into the season. Or at least not much winning anyway. So it was a pretty big surprise to everyone, and a pleasant surprise for Seattle fans when they got off to a fantastic start to the season that made them look like all but locks to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, thanks to a not so great stretch here over the last few games, that's gotten a little bit more dicey. So as Seattle and their number 7 played host to his old team from New York, they really needed the win. And that's just what they got here on the first day of 2023, and in pretty convincing fashion too, with a multi-score victory. Sorry, I meant the Kraken game, but I can see where the confusion would come from. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, and welcome once again back to Kraken Wins, as the Kraken beat the New York Islanders 4-1. For those of us multi-sport fans in Seattle, it also helped that just before the Kraken started beating the Islanders, the Seahawks took care of the Jets just on the other side of the city, saving, at least for now, their hopes at making the postseason. And sure, the win for the Kraken wasn't quite as make-or-break must-win as it was for the Seahawks, but still coming off of back-to-back lackluster and even embarrassing in the most recent one, losses coming out of the Christmas break for the Kraken, this game against the Islanders felt pretty close to a must-win in order to get back on track as they started falling down the standings. And fortunately, once again, just like Gino and the Seahawks were able to do to his old team in the Jets, Eberle and the Kraken take care of his old team in the Islanders and get that important win to start out 2023 and remain unbeaten in this new year. And honestly, for a team, or actually I guess a couple of teams, that haven't lost since last year, I don't see any reason for that to change going into the future. As we do now focus in a little bit more specifically on just the Kraken, coming into this game there were some pretty drastic lineup changes compared to what we've seen for the last few games. The biggest of which being one personnel change, that was Morgan Geekie taking the seat as Tolvanen gets his first start for the Kraken. But with Tolvanen playing wing and Geekie playing center, it did mean then that there was a little bit more mixing and matching needed to get him into the lineup, which, as far as the lines are concerned, considering how the last two games went, I think the Kraken were more than happy to do anyway. As a result, the first line ends up being Burakovsky, Beniers, and Eberle. The second line then McCann, Wemberg, and Schultz. The third is where we see Tolvanen with Gord and Bjorkstrand, and then Donato centers the fourth line with Tanev and Sprong on either side of him. And who knows if it was this change in lines that made the difference, or just a response to that smack in the face the Kraken got from Edmonton 2 nights previous. But whatever it was, it seems to have made a massive difference to the start in this game from that one, where again, that last game of last year, just 4 minutes into it, the Kraken were already down 3-0. Where, as we close into the 10-minute mark of the first period in this game, the Kraken haven't even let up a shot on goal. Eventually, though, they do end up surrendering that first shot on a wraparound chance, and while the save is made, a few seconds later, it's 1-0. But it's 1-0 in Seattle's favor, as right after that save is made, right back down the other way, Sprong gets the puck down behind the net to Donato, and he gets the puck as he's circling around the net up to Larson coming in down the slot, and Larson buries the shot into the back of it. No chance for Sorokin, who honestly was making just about every save he possibly could in this game. Either way, though, he doesn't make this save, and the Kraken are on the board first. And it's certainly not to take away from Geekie at all, who honestly I thought had still been playing pretty well, and him getting scratched is kind of just a virtue of the other two guys who would be options on that fourth line to get Tolvanen into the lineup. In Sprong and Donato have been playing a little bit better than Geekie, so he ends up getting taken out so Tolvanen can go in. Anyway, they wanted to find a way to get Tolvanen into the lineup, and after the last two games went, this was the time that made sense, and Geekie was just kind of by process of elimination, the guy that made sense. And that's because, well, again, Sprong and Donato are making it almost impossible for them to get taken out with it making sense. Either way, the point is that both Donato and Sprong get assists on this Larson goal. And actually, speaking of Donato, as we would unfortunately find out just a few seconds after the Kraken took this lead, the center position was not the only out-of-the-norm role that we would see him filling for the Kraken in this game, as coming into this game, he had less than 8 minutes of time on the penalty kill in his entire career. But as he was playing on the second penalty kill unit, he ended up with 1 minute and 46 seconds in this game alone. And for what it's worth, in a small sample size so far, this new look penalty kill, which also had a different setup than what we've usually seen, going for more of a 2-2 box look than the 1-2-1 diamond that they've been going with so far to this point. They went 2 for 2 on the night and didn't give up all that many chances on goal. And as far as Donato himself is concerned, he had 2 very good shorthanded chances, one on each of the kills the Kraken had in this game. The one in this one, he does have a 2-on-1 chance with Gord, and while usually Donato's the type of guy that will shoot first and ask questions later, on this one, he went for more of the pass approach. Unfortunately, neither one of them could really get the puck to settle down for them, and Sorokin doesn't have too much trouble making the save. And then to jump ahead a little bit, since I guess we're already talking about it anyway, on the second penalty kill that the Kraken had at the start of the second period, it actually starts in the final 5 seconds of the first. But anyway, in that start of the second period, Donato gets on a free breakaway, which Sorokin comes up with a pretty nice toe save on, as Donato tried to deke around him on the backhand side and gets shut down by one of the best goaltenders in the league. Unfortunately for the Kraken though, between those 2 penalty kills that do go very well, especially considering what we've seen so far this season, well, most of this game was, especially in the defensive end, pretty well dominated by the Kraken, who were really suffocating in their own end of the ice, not only limiting the Islanders to only 19 shots on goal by the end of the game, but limiting them to only 2, maybe 3 high danger scoring opportunities. One of those high danger scoring opportunities comes just in the final minutes of this first period, and it's Matthew Barzal who gets behind Alexiak, and as he did a number of times for the Seattle Thunderbirds, he scores in Seattle, just this time not for Seattle, tying the game late in the first as he sneaks it just under the pad through the 5-hole of Jones, one that I think Jones would probably like to have back, but a player like Barzal, given space in front of the net like that, is probably going to score a fair percentage of the time. So it's a goal for Barzal that I'm sure gave some conflicted feelings to T-Bird and Kraken fans, and probably just hurt even more those who are Silvertips and Kraken fans. And of course, it also certainly helps that, as we know, this goal for Barzal would be the only one the Islanders would get all night, and although this does make a rather unfortunate end to the first period, where the Kraken only allowed 6 shots on goal and one of them ends up scoring, Jones was solid the rest of the night, and it didn't take long into the second for the Kraken to retake the lead. And it comes on a power play that they get just after that second kill, and it comes off of the stick of the new guy in Eeli Tolvanen. Now it does have to be said that the Kraken power play takes a little while to get going here, and it isn't until about halfway through it that they finally get set up into the offensive zone. But as soon as they do, McCann gets the puck up to the point where Dunn gets it down to Tolvanen, and Tolvanen's ready to fire off that cannon of a shot that got him to where he's at in the first place. And I mean, this was an absolute bullet into the back of the net that didn't give Sorokin, again, any chance to make the save. On the ESPN broadcast, they had it clocked at 90 miles an hour, but honestly, I would be surprised if it wasn't harder than that. This is the type of shot, I mean, we've kind of seen it from Sprong on the other side, who likes to rifle these from, again, the other side of the ice, but Tolvanen has just as strong of a shot and showed it off here. And with the goal, not only does he give the Kraken the lead, but he also joins a actually pretty long list already of players who have scored in their first ever game with the Kraken. Of course, there's the 3 guys that scored in the first ever Kraken game, those being Donato, Geekie, and McCann. And then there's also Sprong, who scored in his first 3 games for the Kraken later that year. And then this year, we've got Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand, who both scored in their first game, in the first game of the season. And now, I want to say this makes him the 7th player for the Kraken, Tolvanen, who scores in his first. And from this point forward, really for the rest of the game, the Kraken pretty much never looked back. The Islanders do get a little bit of a push between this power play and the next one that the Kraken get a few minutes later towards the middle of the second period. Power play which they very nearly score on again. In fact, it is a couple of pretty spectacular saves by Sorokin that prevent the Kraken from scoring. As Schultz got a hold of the puck just in front of the net with space, Sorokin is able to make that save with his pad, and then off the rebound, it's Bjorkstrand who's able to lift the puck, but just not quite enough, as Sorokin, still laid out on his stomach from the previous save on Schultz, is able to kick his foot up just enough to make the toe save on Bjorkstrand's lifted shot, and rob Bjorkstrand of a goal. Once again, Bjorkstrand remains snakebit as this season continues. Although, maybe that's all about to change as just a few minutes later, a shot from the point by Alexiak gets through everybody, rebounds off the pad of Sorokin as he's able to make the relatively easy save, but it goes right out into a relatively similar spot, a little farther away, but once again, it's Oliver Bjorkstrand that's there. He gets the shot off and this time is able to lift it even higher, roofing it bar down and in to give the Kraken the 3-1 lead, and also get him his 5th goal of the season and hopefully open up the floodgates a bit for him. Finally, now about halfway through the season. And from here, as the Kraken continue to play suffocating defense in their own end of the ice, only allowing another 6 shots in the second period after allowing 6 in the first, and then only allowing 7 in the third, again with very few high danger chances in all of those. And Jones, of course, able to make all but the one save, as the Kraken take care of business through the rest of the second, and the rest of the third, and as time ticks down, finish off the 3-1 victory. Wait, what do you mean the game's not over? There's still 5.5 minutes left, but it says zeros on the clock. Well, apparently the game wasn't quite over as there was a clock malfunction. Weirdly enough, not the first technical malfunction of the night, as just after the Kraken scored the first goal, their next high danger chance, the horn went, but Sorokin made the save, which seemed like a bad omen at the time, and especially seemed like a bad omen after Barzal tied the game. Of course, the Kraken overcame that. But after time runs down, the horn goes off and people started leaving thinking the Kraken had won 3-0. In fact, there's even the whole roar of the crowd as the last few seconds tick down. But no, they were quick to inform everybody that the game wasn't over and there was still 5.5 minutes left to play. Or as they would end up deciding, a little bit less than that, but we'll get there. Come to think of it, it did seem a little bit weird that the Islanders hadn't bothered to pull Sorokin in the final couple minutes of the game, and now we know why. It's because it wasn't the final couple minutes. So they do put those 5.5 minutes back on the clock that should have been there the whole time. And once again, the Kraken are able to take care of business. This time they do pull Sorokin with about 2 minutes left. The Kraken try a few times, I think, to get Beniers an empty shot goal or empty net shot to get a goal. But eventually it's Tanev who ends up scoring, and he looked a little disappointed that he was the one that ends up scoring, as he was trying to get the pass to Dunn to get a goal for Dunn. Eventually, though, Tanev does just end up taking a shot and scoring, which I gotta say, well, I understand the whole hockey team mentality thing of trying to get that extra guy an extra point. We've already seen it potentially cost the Kraken a point in the standings earlier this season. In fact, just about a week and a half ago against the Canucks, when they may have had a chance to score on the empty net at the end of that game with just a 1-goal lead. They tried to pass it one extra time. It ends up not leading to a goal. Then it gets tied, goes to overtime, and they lose. So while, yeah, there was a little bit less chance with a 2-goal lead that was going to happen in this time, just cut it out and score on the empty net when you have the chance. But that aside, eventually the final seconds do tick down, or actually they stop the game as the puck goes out of play with 3 seconds left, and then the officials kind of just decide to let the clock tick down and not play the final few seconds. I mean, to be fair, it's not like it was going to matter. The Islanders weren't going to score 3 goals in 2.2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever was left. But still, it seemed a little bit weird that they kind of just went over to the timekeeper and said, I think we're done here. Just let it tick down. It's fine. Either way, a couple of weird clock things happened towards the end of the game. The weird buzzer towards the beginning. Hardly matters. The Kraken end up playing a perfect game themselves, even if there were some technical issues surrounding them. Obviously, a relatively convincing 4-1 win is going to feel good no matter what, especially after how the last few games have gone for the Kraken. But it's also nice to see them doing it at both ends of the ice. They continue to play pretty well in the offensive end, getting another 35 shots on goal coming off of 38 the game before, and also a fair number of high dangerous ones on top of that. Meanwhile, at the defensive end, where their issues had kind of lied over the last few games and really over this stretch of kind of iffy play in the last few weeks, they really got back to that suffocating defense that we've seen them play when they've been going well, especially in most of November, for example. Again, 19 shots on goal, but not just the number of shots on goal. Again, as I've mentioned a couple of times, the quality of those shots, as they were almost all limited to the outside, making it pretty easy for Jones. And even outside of 5-on-5 play, which has been the Kraken's strength pretty much throughout the entire season, even the special teams in this game, which has been the weakness, were pretty good. The power play only goes 1 for 2, but they very nearly went 2 for 2, and the penalty kill not only went 2 for 2, but really didn't allow that many high danger chances, in those two, meanwhile got a couple of pretty good scoring chances themselves. So really, all that's left now is to keep doing it for the next few games. I mean, ideally the remaining just under 50 games of the season, but either way, especially this next game against the Oilers, who not only did that last game not go well, but this is again, as we've said, a team that the Kraken need to get some points against. At least for now though, this win is a very good, very complete one for the Kraken, not just because of, as we've talked about, how things have gone in the recent past, but also because of what's coming up in the near future, as the Kraken go now onto their longest road trip of the season, 7 straight games on the road, and this last win at home, especially with it being as complete a win as it was, will definitely help carry some good vibes into that road trip, and hopefully this team can get back to what they were able to do on the road early on in the season. Finally then, we'll close out with the 3 stars in this game, and for the first star, what the heck, why not? We'll give it to the new guy in Eli Tolvanen, not only getting his first goal on the power play, which gave the Kraken the lead, ends up being the game-winning goal, but even outside of that, he played pretty well in all parts of the ice, ends with just over 12 minutes of ice time, and great on the forecheck and back check, even a couple block shots. So offering the Kraken a lot more than just that ridiculously powerful shot that he has. My second star of the game is going to go to Vince Dunn with 2 assists on the game, and again, another pretty complete game from Dunn, who has, even after a pretty good season last year, really impressed so far this season. In a lot of ways, even outside of the score sheet, which is good for a defenseman who's not going to get on the score sheet as much as forwards are. Either way, another very strong game from Dunn. Sure, one of those 2 assists is on the empty netter, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. He gets 2 assists and a great game from him. Yanni Gord also had 2 assists, but I think he's probably going to be an honorable mention for me. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments and make him the 3rd star if you want. But for me, the 3rd star in this game is going to be Oliver Bjorkstrand. Again, gets that goal for the 3rd one of the game, giving the Kraken the multi-point lead, which feels pretty good with, 1 goal leads not feeling all that safe. But also got very close to getting 2 goals, and again, played pretty well even outside of that. As always though, feel free to let me know if you disagree down in the comments section, who your 3 stars of the game would be, what you thought of this game in general. Again, really the only part of it that didn't go particularly well for the Kraken was the face-off circle, where, there was a tough night for the Kraken in the face-off dot, but anyway, the rest of the game went great, and they ended up winning 4-1 anyway, so we'll take it where we can get it, and hopefully carry this on into this road trip. And yeah, if you've made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel. Until next time, as the Kraken continue their streak of having not lost a game since last year, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.